I paid over $200,000 for my Wharton MBA, and honestly, a lot of what's taught in the core curriculum can easily be learned and applied. And so my goal with this video today is to save you an incredible amount of money by teaching you everything that they cover in an MBA program, the frameworks, the models, the ways of thinking that can help you make better business decisions, whether you're running a company, working in finance, or just trying to get smarter about business. More specifically, we're going to be going over the 4 key pillars of business: marketing, operations, corporate finance, and strategy, all through case studies of famous companies and key frameworks and formulas relevant to all industries. Before we jump into our mini MBA today though, you first need to understand the educational philosophy behind MBA programs. Most people don't know that MBA programs don't actually teach you how to run a business. Instead, they teach you how to reverse engineer businesses that already exist. They show you what Apple did to dominate the smartphone market, what Amazon did to kill retail, what Netflix did to destroy Blockbuster, and then they make you extract all the patterns. So throughout my time at Wharton, I read through many packets of PDFs with context about companies that went through tough challenges, along with key data through charts and financials, and learned about the key patterns all businesses face. And so you learn these patterns so deeply that when you see a new business, you can immediately diagnose what's working, what's broken, and what they should do next. In my opinion, that's the real value of the MBA from the classroom perspective. It's the mental operating system that you build by studying hundreds of businesses until you start to see underlying patterns. And so today, I'm going to install that operating system into your brain by walking you through the exact curriculum of a top MBA program using the same case study approach that a lot of MBA programs use, except instead of charging you $200,000, I'm going to give it to you completely for free. Let's first get started with marketing, which is the voice of a company and how it communicates who it is, why it matters, and why customers should care about them. The reason that I'm starting with marketing is that I personally think that when you're studying any company, looking at how a company brands itself and what its unique advantages are is the best way to understand the company and get a glimpse into why they're either successful or they're not. At Wharton, we were taught that great marketing isn't about making things look flashy and working with influencers. It's about truly understanding your target customer to an obsessive level and building systems that consistently turn attention into trust, and that trust eventually into sales. No company has done this better than Nike, which at the end of the day sells a commodity, but is a company that has really captured the minds of millions of customers. So let's break down how Nike built one of the strongest brands in the world using 3 core levers of marketing: attention, conversion, and then retention. The first stage is attention, and it starts with one simple truth: no one can buy from you if they don't know you exist. But it's also important how you gather this attention. Nike, for example, has mastered the art of attention by tapping into universal emotion rather than diving into boring product features. Nike ads aren't about soles, fabrics, or specs. They talk about human ambition. When you hear "just do it," it doesn't just sell you a product, it sells you a mindset. This is where the classic AIDA framework, attention, interest, desire, action, comes in. Nike grabs attention through bold storytelling, then builds interest through star athletes and iconic visuals, then sparks desire by showing transformation rather than consumption, and finally drives action through limited drops and direct calls to engage. Every campaign from the Michael Jordan era to the recent Dodgers World Series victory ad reinforces the same emotional positioning that Nike isn't just a shoe brand, it's a symbol of human potential. The takeaway here is that attention is not just about reach, it's about resonance. The brands that win are the ones that stand for something people want to be a part of. Once you have the customer's attention, the next step is conversion, which is turning belief into buying behavior. And so let's talk about one of the most popular marketing frameworks, the 4 Ps, which stands for product, price, place, and promotion. The goal with the 4 Ps is to design every part of your offer so that the story your company is telling matches the experience that the customer gets. Given that Nike has so many different product lines, let me actually show you how I use the 4 Ps for my own business. I have a banking mentorship program called the Banking Accelerator that provides high-touch, one-on-one support for breaking into banking. And so let's go into how I applied the 4 Ps framework to my business. First, for product, the program is designed for students who want personalized one-on-one coaching with a structured curriculum and all the resources that they need for recruiting, like over 30 hours of video content, Excel exercises to build models, and a question bank with over 500 real interview questions. Our key selling point basically is that we are an efficient one-stop shop that can land you a 6-figure banking offer. Next, for price, the program is a high-ticket, results-driven program, so it's priced as a premium service that costs thousands of dollars, with different services depending on ability to pay. The price signals quality and is representative of the tangible ROI of landing a six-figure banking job, and it's also offset by our built-in guarantee that if students follow our system and don't land offers, they get continued support for free. In terms of place, the program is delivered entirely online, which allows us to serve students globally while keeping the high-touch experience. Students get to learn from real bankers no matter where they are in the world and can move at their own pace. The main promotion channels are through my social media platforms, LinkedIn, and email newsletter, all methods of building trust and creating awareness for the program as the fastest, most certain path into banking. And by the way, on that note, if you want to learn more about the program, feel free to check out the link in this video's description. And so, as you can see, the 4 Ps is a great fundamental way to analyze how to position your product so that you tell one consistent story, remove friction from the purchasing experience, and have your customers feel a certain way when they click the buy button. The third marketing lever is retention, which is about turning one-time customers into lifelong fans. Going back to Nike, your relationship with the company doesn't end when you buy the product. That's actually where it begins. Nike has created an ecosystem that keeps customers in their orbit through things like Nike Run Club and other apps that track workouts, build habits, and keep engagement high. Nike membership rewards loyalty and personalizes the buying experience, while standard email and app data feeds back into product development and campaign targeting. 2 very important formulas to measure the success of your retention are customer lifetime value and customer acquisition cost, which you can use to analyze your marketing ROI. CLV is your average order value times your purchase frequency times retention time. So for example, if a Nike customer spends $150 twice a year for 5 years, that's $1,500 of lifetime value of that customer. If Nike were to spend $200 to acquire that customer through various marketing channels like Google AdWords and Instagram retargeting, the ROI here is 7.5x. And so in order to improve the effectiveness of your marketing, you can spend time increasing the different components of your customer lifetime value or lowering your customer acquisition cost in order to drive marketing ROI higher and ultimately drive your company profitability and valuation. So putting everything we learned about marketing together, attention earns customer awareness, conversion earns their trust, and retention earns their loyalty. Marketing is not about being loud, it's about being understood. And the companies that understand and serve their customers the best are the ones who win. Now, before we move on to the next section, I feel like you clicked on this video because you care about self-improvement and want to further your education. And if that's the case, I wanted to let you know about a really cool program between Columbia Business School and Wall Street Prep that's focused on AI for business and finance. Being able to leverage AI is quickly becoming the most in-demand skill sought by the world's top employers, but it's often hard to know how to actually build these skills. But through this program's 8-week-long course, you'll learn about core AI concepts like LLMs and machine learning, get hands-on experience using Python to solve business problems, and see how top firms use AI in FP&A, risk, investment management, and a lot of different fields. You'll be taught by world-class Columbia professors and also have a chance to learn from a ton of great guest speakers who work at firms like OpenAI, Perplexity, and Google. There's truly no program currently like this, and I think it's really cool. And so if you're interested, use my code rareliquid to get up to $500 off, and I'll leave information and links for everything I just discussed in this video's description. All right, with that said, let's now move on to operations, which is like the engine of a car. Without it, all you have is a chunk of metal with no functionality, and it's the same for a business. One of the companies we often studied at Wharton was Amazon, which amongst all top companies probably has the most complicated and vast operations. And so in this section, let's go over how Amazon shrank delivery days from 2 to 1 without doubling their costs by focusing on the 3 most important levers in operations: bottleneck, flow, and variability. Starting with bottlenecks, the theory of constraints basically say that you are your weakest link and that a company's bottleneck is the slowest step that sets your system's speed. I remember in one operations class watching a video with Elon Musk in it, who talked about how manufacturing cars is a nightmare because you're only as fast as your slowest input. So if it takes 2 extra weeks to get just one tiny little screw, even though it's a tiny piece of your whole car, that's the fastest you can go. In class, what we did is go through Amazon's entire system from customer checkout to delivery, which was picking the product in the warehouse, packing it up, sorting for delivery, line haul mass delivery, and then last mile delivery. What we found in class was that Amazon's biggest bottlenecks are picking the products and last mile delivery because everything else can be done in an efficient, bulk manner except those two. After identifying the bottlenecks, you then need to remove as much friction as possible and elevate capacity, which Amazon did by adding in robots, smarter routing algorithms, and more localized fulfillment centers. The most frustrating part about bottlenecks is that you're always going to have one, especially as you scale. So identifying and fixing bottlenecks is really a never-ending process. The second operations lever is flow, which is about how smoothly work moves throughout your system without stops, piles, or idle time. One of the most popular operational formulas for flow is Little's Law, which states that work in progress equals throughput times lead time, where work in progress is how much stuff is inside the system at any moment, like orders waiting, and throughput is how fast the system finishes work, like orders per day, and lead time is how long it takes one unit to go from start to finish. Essentially, it's a rate times time formula, and so in order for Amazon to go from 2-day delivery to 1 day, it needed to either have its work in progress or double its throughput, which over time the company has been able to do for a lot of orders by improving its forecasting abilities to place inventory in the right fulfillment centers even before customers click the checkout button. The goal with flow is to operate at a consistent rhythm where nothing waits longer than it needs to, because the opposite of flow is queues, backlogs, and start-stop chaos. The third lever in operations is variability, which is all about planning for the unplannable and giving your operations enough slack to breathe when reality gets bumpy. You may think that the number one goal as a chief operating officer would be to run operations at 100% capacity all the time, but that would actually be a foolish goal because when utilization creeps towards the max, wait times skyrocket and small hiccups turn into long queues. And so as a result, a prudent COO's goal is to build an adaptable system that balances capacity and demand so that the system stays fast both in quiet and busy hours. For Amazon, the biggest sources of variability are evening and weekend order surges, promo days like Prime Day, and weather or traffic that hits line haul and last mile routes that slow down delivery. To solve for these variables, Amazon shapes demand with clear delivery windows and same-day and next-day delivery cutoffs, which flattens the evening spike instead of letting every single order hit at once. Amazon also maintains a capacity cushion to handle sudden increases in demand by hiring seasonal and overtime teams and turning on surge capacity through Amazon Flex and delivery service partners for the last mile to absorb short peaks and provide a consistent experience to all customers. Putting this all together, whether you're Amazon or you're starting your own business, you can follow this 3-step playbook for operations. First, identify your largest bottlenecks and remove friction. Second, improve flow by figuring out how you can efficiently increase the rate at which you produce your products or services, or the time it takes to produce each one. And lastly, prepare for variability by creating an adaptable system rather than trying to run every single resource at 100%. Let's now move on to finance, which is like the oxygen for your business. You don't always notice it when it's working, but when it's gone, everything stops. One of the biggest lessons I took from Wharton is that finance isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about how a company makes decisions with money to create long-term value. And to break it down simply, there are 3 main financial levers every business from a startup to a trillion-dollar company like Apple needs to manage well: cash, cost of capital, and capital allocation. First, let's talk about cash, and more specifically, free cash flow, which is the lifeblood of any company. There's a popular saying my valuation professor would always say, which is that revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, but free cash flow, that's reality. Cash flow is what's actually left after you've paid your bills and reinvested to keep the business running. There are many different types of free cash flow, but the one that's easiest to understand is your operating cash flow from your cash flow statement minus your capital expenditures. This is essentially how much cash your company generates from its day-to-day operations and sale of goods and services minus reinvestments into the business. Now, for example, if we look at Apple's 2025 financial statements, we can see that they generated about $111.5 billion in operating cash flow and spent $12.7 billion in capex, meaning they generated around $98.8 billion in cash flow, which Apple can then use to invest in new products, buy back shares, or pay dividends, all without depending on outside investors. The second lever is cost of capital, which is basically the return your projects need to exceed for them to be profitable and worthwhile. In our corporate finance classes at Wharton, this is where you learn about the weighted average cost of capital, or WACC, which is a blend of the cost of equity and the after-tax cost of debt, weighted by how much of each your company uses. Now, of course, this formula is complicated and not easy to understand if it's your first time coming across it. So just think of it as similar to how if you were to own a small business and sell 10% of your equity to your friend, that friend would expect some kind of return over time, right? That's basically your cost of equity. And then when you take out loans like a student loan, there's an interest rate, and that's basically your cost of debt. Equity and debt are the two main ways companies are financed, and so WACC just tells us what % all investors expect from their investments. And as a business owner, the most important thing is that you want any capital you spend to have a higher return than your WACC, because that's how you compound value, and otherwise you'll be destroying value. Now, understanding your cash flow and cost of capital lead to what I thought was the most interesting part of MBA finance classes, capital allocation, which is all about how you strategically use your money. Every business pretty much has the same menu: reinvest in the core, acquire other companies, pay down debt, pay dividends, or buy back shares. These are the main ways companies build value through capital allocation, and all options must be analyzed and weighed against each other so that every dollar goes to the highest return possible. Let's go through an example with Apple, who has $100 billion in excess cash, and the company is debating between two options. Option 1 is to develop an advanced mixed reality headset, which would require $100 billion in upfront investment, and Apple estimates it would generate $15 billion in free cash flow every year for the next 10 years. Option 2 is to use that same $100 billion to buy back shares, and at the current share price and earnings, those repurchases would reduce Apple's share count enough to increase earnings per share by roughly 5% per year. If Apple's internal confidence in the headset's long-term growth is high, and it believes it can unlock a new platform like the iPhone did, then reinvesting in the core might deliver outsized returns beyond what a model shows today. But the project does carry a lot of risk and barely clears the hurdle, and so the buyback might actually be the smarter play because it guarantees a near certain return that meets or exceeds the cost of capital. This is pretty much what capital allocation is all about. Not just what sounds exciting, but which choice compounds shareholder value the fastest given the risk and cost of capital. And so great CFOs and CEOs are constantly asking the question, if we can't earn more than our hurdle rate internally, should we just actually be giving cash back to our investors? And so in summary, corporate finance is about three things: cash, which tells you what you can do; cost of capital, which shows you what you should do; and capital allocation, which is what you actually do. The best companies like Apple excel at all three and are able to turn profit into consistent cash, keep their cost of capital low, and deploy money where it compounds the fastest. And so the real lesson about finance from business school is that it's not about just chasing revenue or cutting costs. It's about managing money as a system for creating value that compounds and lasts. Last but not least, let's talk about strategy, which is often considered one of the sexiest areas of business, if there is such a thing. And strategy is all about where a company plays and why it wins. One of the biggest takeaways from my MBA is that success isn't about doing more, it's about making choices that create advantages. Because every company has limited resources, and strategy is the discipline of saying no to good ideas so you can focus on the great ones. One company that has mastered this discipline is Tesla, and I'll be breaking down their strategy through three lenses: position, edge, and system. First up, position is all about deciding where to play and what game you're trying to win. When Tesla entered the auto industry, it didn't try to compete head-on with Toyota or Ford on mass-market cars. It started with a narrow premium segment in electric sports cars because that's where early adopters and tech enthusiasts were willing to pay more. Of course, over time, Tesla expanded from niche luxury with the Roadster to high-end sedan with the Model S to mass-market models with the Model 3 and Y, which is a textbook example of the Ansoff matrix, which is a 2x2 matrix that crosses products with markets and answers the question, should we grow by selling more of the same products, by creating new products, by reaching new customers, or reinventing ourselves entirely? Generally, companies need to focus the majority of their efforts on one quadrant when deciding on how to grow, but over time, large companies can make strong progress across all four. Tesla, for example, was able to sell more to current customers by adding features like supercharger access and self-driving technology, developed several new car models to attract new customers, entered new markets like China and Europe, and kind of reinvented themselves in a sense by moving towards energy storage, solar, AI, and robotics. Now, of course, it's hard for a company to always be successful across all fronts, but the point is that it's helpful to use this matrix as a way to frame your thinking of how to grow a company. Once you've picked your business battlefield, the next step is edge and building advantages that are hard to replicate. One way to determine where your edge lies is through the VRIO framework, a tool that helps analyze whether a company's resources create a sustainable competitive advantage. VRIO stands for valuable, rare, inimitable, and organized, meaning a resource gives lasting advantage only if it adds value, few others have it, it's hard to copy, and the company is structured to use it effectively. The way you use it is by measuring each of a company's competitive advantages. So for example, Tesla's technology integration, data from millions of cars, and vertical supply chain are valuable because it's what generates important features that drive revenue. It's rare because only a handful of companies have this ability. Inimitable because competitors can't easily replicate Tesla's real-world driving data or manufacturing scale. And lastly, Tesla is organized to exploit these advantages through unified software, hardware, and AI teams, giving it an edge that keeps compounding over time. The result is a company that doesn't just make better electric cars, it makes it hard for anyone else to catch up. And as Elon once put it, our real competition isn't other EVs, it's the pace of innovation. And that's the essence of strategy, building an edge that grows stronger the longer competition chases you. The third and final piece of strategy is system, which is about how all your choices reinforce each other. One framework that helps visualize a company's strategy is Porter's activity map, which basically says your company's competitive advantage doesn't come from a single move, but from how all your activities reinforce each other. Imagine drawing Tesla's strategy on paper. At the center, you'd have accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy, and around it, you'd map out connected nodes like gigafactories, superchargers, battery R&D, autopilot software, direct-to-consumer sales, and brand storytelling. Each of those activities strengthens another. Gigafactories make batteries cheaper, which improves affordability, which expands the market. Superchargers reduce range anxiety, which boosts adoption, which grows data for autopilot, which improves product quality. Direct-to-consumer sales provide customer feedback loops, which refine design, and that reinforces Tesla's innovative brand image. The key here is that no single element wins the game. It's the connections between them that do, and that's the essence of Porter's activity map and of great corporate strategy. You can also apply this analysis to your business or any business you're analyzing by figuring out what's the core goal or mission of the company, what are the 5 to 7 key activities that directly support the mission, and how can you make each activity mutually reinforcing so that improving one makes the other stronger. When you think of corporate strategy in this way, you're no longer playing checkers, you're playing chess. Each move builds momentum for the next, and over time, that's what separates companies from the ones that stagnate to the ones that compound. Putting it all together for strategy, position is where you choose to compete, edge is what gives you power, and your system is how you make everything work together. As you saw, Tesla's success isn't luck or hype. It's a series of strategic choices that align around their mission, and that's what makes them hard to beat. Not the cars themselves, but the coherence of their entire strategy. And so whether you're building a startup, leading a team, or analyzing an investment, what you need to remember is that strategy isn't about being first or sometimes even about being the best. It's about making smart decisions that compound value over time. So those are the 4 pillars of business that they teach at top MBA programs like Wharton. And if you have this fundamental business knowledge down, it can really change the way you think about businesses. There's also a lot that the MBA teaches you about leadership, EQ, soft skills, and more. So definitely let me know down in the comments if you'd be interested in more content like this. And just in case you're watching this video because you're interested in breaking into banking through your MBA, or if you're just an undergrad or working professional interested in banking, I've been working super hard, basically working banking hours these days on my mentorship program, the Banking Accelerator. If you're interested in getting one-to-one mentorship to land a 6-figure banking job, book a call with my team through the link in the description below. You can also visit our site to just learn a lot more about my program. Congrats on making it this far and getting your mini MBA from YouTube. And if you enjoyed this video, in the next screen, you're going to see one where I made about everything I learned at my time while I was a JP Morgan investment banking analyst, where I go through a lot of technicals, finance, and those kinds of concepts. I think if you enjoyed this video, you're really gonna enjoy that one as well. So be sure to check it out if you're interested. And if you could, it would be super appreciated if you could send this video to any of your friends who really care about like their self-improvement and just education in general. With that, thank you so much as always for watching, and hope to catch you in the next video. Thanks guys, and peace out.